Imagine, for just a second, that you are standing just off stage in a massive darkened arena. It's 2019.
Right, the American Music Awards.
Exactly, the AMAs. And in just a few moments, you are about to walk out into the blinding lights to be crowned Artist of the Decade.
The crowd is already roaring.
Yeah, you're getting ready to perform this sweeping medley of your life's work. It should be the triumphant climax of your entire career.
But there's a massive, almost unbelievable catch holding you back.
You aren't legally allowed to sing the very songs you wrote with your own two hands, alone in your childhood bedroom.
It sounds completely fictional, like the premise for a tense Hollywood thriller about corporate greed or something.
It really does.
But that is the exact, very stark reality Taylor Swift faced.
Welcome to this deep dive. We are so thrilled you're here with us today.
We really are.
Our mission today is to explore a really fascinating biographical analysis by Farid Diak. We are using his research to answer a question that seems to polarize almost everyone you talk to.
Is Taylor Swift just an over-idealized, average singer who managed to get incredibly lucky?
Or is she a calculated historical phenomenon on a level we haven't seen since the Beatles?
It is a massive question. And to truly answer it, we have to look far past the radio hits and the celebrity headlines.
We need to look at the hard data.
Yes, the data, the unprecedented business acumen, and most importantly, the psychology of an artist who essentially figured out how to weaponize her own vulnerability.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to truly understand the billionaire empire she sits on today, we have to travel all the way back to a quiet bedroom in Reading, Pennsylvania. And what absolutely blew my mind reading through this analysis is that music actually wasn't her first love.
It was writing.
Right. At just 10 years old, she won a national poetry contest.
And the poem was called A Monster in My Closet. That specific detail is so crucial to understanding her trajectory.
How so?
Well, it tells you that long before she ever picked up a guitar or sang a note, she was fundamentally a storyteller.
I see.
She was analyzing her world, identifying her fears, and figuring out how to frame those emotions in words. It's also quite fitting that her parents actually named her after the iconic singer-songwriter James Taylor.
So you could argue the musical destiny was baked in from day one.
Exactly. But the sheer drive, that was entirely her own creation.
Oh, the drive is borderline insane. Diak paints this incredibly visceral picture of her as a kid. She would sit in her room and practice the guitar until her fingers literally bled.
And she wasn't just practicing in a vacuum.
No. At age 12 years old, she is standing in front of a massive, echoing stadium crowd, singing the national anthem at a Philadelphia 76ers versus Detroit Pistons game.
I don't know about you, but at 12, I was terrified of giving a book report to 20 people.
Right, let alone singing in an NBA arena.
It takes a very specific type of psychological resilience to handle that pressure at that age. And when you combine that intense work ethic and early exposure to performance with typical teenage angst,
you get some very interesting, highly lucrative results.
Exactly.
Which brings us to my absolute favorite origin story from this biographical deep dive. It is the most relatable teenage rebellion ever.
the mom story.
Yes. Taylor's mom, Andrea, forbade her from seeing a boy that she liked. Just normal parent-teenager conflict, right?
Taylor gets furious, runs to her room, and locks the door.
But instead of just blasting music and sulking for the rest of the night, she emerges a few hours later with a fully formed song called Love Story.
It's incredible.
She took that raw teenage frustration, framed it into a Romeo and Juliet narrative, and turned it into a massive global anthem.
What's fascinating here is how she leveraged that exact same storytelling instinct, that ability to read a situation and take control of the narrative when it came time to make actual corporate business decisions.
You're talking about the move to Nashville.
Yes. Let's look at the year 2004. She is 15 years old. Her highly supportive parents help fund her move to Nashville, which is the undisputed capital of country music.
She starts getting attention, but she doesn't just jump at the first massive record deal that comes her way from a major label.
Which, let's be honest, almost any 15-year-old absolutely would do. If a major label waves a contract in your face, you sign it? Why didn't she?
Because she recognized the value of ownership early on, instead of signing with a giant corporation where she would just be a number on a roster.
She chose to sign with Big Machine Records.
Right. At the time, this was a newly founded independent label started by an executive named Scott Borchetta.
By choosing to be a big fish in a very small, unproven pond, this 15-year-old negotiated unprecedented creative control over her own music and her artistic direction. She wasn't being molded by executives. She was calling the shots.
A 15-year-old demanding creative control in a notoriously rigid industry. And it pays off big time. Her 2006 self-titled debut hits number 5 on the Billboard 200.
Which, for those who might not follow music charts closely, is the standard ranking of the 200 most popular music albums in the United States.
Hitting number 5 is a monumental achievement for a debut. And then her second album, Fearless, makes her the youngest artist in history at the time to win the Grammy for Album of the Year.
And the analysis notes that the magic ingredient behind all those accolades was her intimate, diary-like honesty. Listeners felt fundamentally understood by her.
To put it in sociological terms, she essentially built a parasocial relationship with millions of people before that concept was even a buzzword.
For those listening who might not be familiar with the term, can you break down what a parasocial relationship actually means in this context?
Absolutely. A parasocial relationship is a one-sided psychological bond where an audience member feels a deep personal connection to a public figure, even though the celebrity has no idea who they are.
Because Taylor was expressing the universal complexities of growing up, the heartbreaks, the deep insecurities, the fears, in such specific, raw detail. It made every single listener feel like she was reading directly from their own private diary.
They didn't just like her music, they felt like she was their close friend.
That is a powerful dynamic to wield. But, as with any massive rise to fame, that level of public exposure comes with a heavy price.
Which brings us to a cultural moment I think everyone listening probably remembers. The 2009 MTV Video Music Awards.
Taylor wins Best Female Video for You Belong With Me.
She is 19 years old, experiencing the pinnacle of her career thus far. And then Kanye West walks on stage.
He snatches the microphone right out of her hand on live television and declares that Beyoncé was the rightful winner.
The cultural shockwave of that single unscripted moment cannot be overstated. It wasn't just passing tabloid gossip.
It permeated every single layer of society. It became a defining pop culture touchstone.
It really did. The analysis highlights just how massive this was by pointing out that even then, President Barack Obama publicly weighed in, calling Kanye a jerk for doing that to a young artist.
And we're just reporting the source's observation here impartially, simply to show you the sheer magnitude of the incident.
Exactly. We're not taking sides.
Yeah.
But when the sitting president of the United States is commenting on a music award show interruption, you know it has transcended entertainment news.
Completely. But what is truly important is the aftermath. That event really exposed some deep-seated double standards in the music industry.
Instead of crumbling under the very public humiliation, Taylor used it as fuel. She went on to release her 2010 album, Speak Now.
Which is incredibly notable because she wrote every single song on that album entirely by herself. No co-writers.
But wait, instead of celebrating that massive songwriting achievement, which is rare in pop music, the critics seem to just sharpen their knives, right?
They did? And this is where the sexism becomes glaringly apparent in the research. Critics consistently minimized her talent, claiming she was only successful because she aired her dirty laundry and wrote about high-profile ex-boyfriends.
For instance, there is a song on that album widely speculated to be about the musician John Mayer. He was 32 years old when they dated. She was just 19.
That is a huge power dynamic discrepancy.
Precisely. She writes a song exploring the manipulation, the confusion, and the disappointment of that specific power dynamic.
But instead of the media analyzing the art or the vulnerability it took to write it, she gets heavily criticized simply for writing about her personal life.
The double standard is staggering. Male artists have written about their romantic conquests, their breakups, and their personal lives for decades, centuries really, without ever facing that level of public scrutiny or having their actual artistic validity questioned.
She felt she was being judged simply for being a young woman daring to write her own truth. And she kept pushing forward despite it, eventually pivoting fully from country to pop with the massive, undeniable success of her album, 1989.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because those early critics were just the warm-up act. In 2016, we hit the crisis that almost ended her entire career.
The famous controversy.
Right. So Kanye West releases a song claiming that he made Taylor famous, directly referencing that 2009 VMA incident. Taylor publicly objects to the offensive nature of the lyric.
But then, Kanye and his wife at the time released manipulated audio and video evidence online, specifically designed to paint Taylor Swift as a liar who had secretly agreed to the song.
And the court of public opinion was swift, and it was brutal.
Brutal almost feels like an understatement. The entire world basically turned on her overnight. They called her a snake.
Her social media was flooded with millions of snake emojis.
The biographical analysis describes this as the complete and utter destruction of her good girl reputation. It sent her to the absolute lowest point in her life. She vanished from the public eye for an entire year.
This is where we see her brilliant grasp of behavioral psychology and PR crisis management. Think about the standard playbook when a celebrity faces a massive, career-ending backlash.
The traditional advice from publicists is to issue a highly sanitized, tearful apology, lay completely low, and try to slowly win back public favor by being as agreeable and harmless as possible.
Taylor did the exact opposite.
She didn't just refuse to apologize, she leaned all the way in.
She completely subverted the entire concept of cancel culture. She took control of the narrative. In 2017, she emerged from hiding and released the album Reputation.
And the music video for the lead single, Look What You Made Me Do, literally begins with a cinematic shot of a tombstone that reads, "Here lies Taylor Swift's reputation."
It gives you chills just thinking about the audacity of that move.
It is an absolute masterclass in subversion. She embraced the snake imagery. She took the exact weapon that was used for mass cyberbullying against her and forged it into her own personal armor.
She stopped trying to be the agreeable good girl and decided to aggressively play the villain they told her she was. By owning the insult, she stripped it of all its power.
It is such an incredible psychological power move. But Dyack also adds a really beautiful grounding detail to this dark period in his analysis.
It wasn't just all cold vengeance and calculated PR strategy.
Exactly. During this time, when she felt completely abandoned by the public and the media, she met the actor Joe Alwyn.
And the analysis points out that he loved her for who she actually was, totally insulated from the noise, the fake evidence, and the fame.
It's a really nice reminder for you listening that sometimes hitting rock bottom is the only way you find out who your real friends actually are.
It provided her with a crucial safe harbor. Having that private, solid foundation allowed her to execute such a bold, risky public reinvention.
She recovered her cultural status, went on to release critically acclaimed albums like Lover, Folklore, and Evermore. Which brings us right back to the dramatic hook we started this deep dive with.
The 2019 American Music Awards.
Exactly. So she is about to be honored as Artist of the Decade. But a massive corporate earthquake has just happened behind the scenes. Big Machine Records, the very same independent label she signed with at 15 to ensure her creative control, was sold to a company called Ithaca Holdings.
And Ithaca Holdings is owned by a man named Scooter Braun.
Right, a man who, very importantly, previously managed and represented Kanye West during the 2016 bullying campaign.
You literally cannot make this stuff up. It reads exactly like a supervillain origin story. But play devil's advocate for me here. By 2019, she is unbelievably wealthy. She's a global icon. If someone she despises buys her catalog, why couldn't she just write a massive check and buy it back from Ithaca Holdings?
It's a great question. And to understand why she couldn't just buy them back, we need to break down how music ownership actually works, because it's not like buying a house.
Right.
In the music industry, there are essentially two different copyrights for every single song. There is the publishing right, which is the ownership of the underlying composition, the lyrics, and the melody. Taylor owned those because she wrote them. But then there's the master recording.
The actual audio file of the song being performed.
Exactly. Think of the master recording like the original canvas of the Mona Lisa. You can sell millions of cheap prints and posters, the CDs and streams, but whoever owns that original canvas in the museum holds all the real power and the wealth.
Taylor owned the idea of the Mona Lisa, but Scooter Braun's company had just purchased the actual physical canvases of the 6 albums she wrote from age 15 onward.
Her entire life's work up to that point was legally owned by someone she viewed as a bully. Her legacy was essentially being held hostage.
So she is not allowed to perform her old songs on television without his permission. She doesn't own the music she literally bled over as a kid.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is the exact moment where Taylor Swift transcends being just a massive pop star and becomes a music industry revolutionary.
She didn't just file a standard lawsuit. She didn't just complain on social media.
She looked deeply at her original contracts, found a legal loophole that allowed her to re-record her own compositions after a certain amount of time, and decided to physically remake every single one of those early albums from scratch.
It is the ultimate counterattack. And it wasn't just a technical legal loophole that only lawyers cared about. It became a massive, unprecedented cultural phenomenon.
The research highlights how fans completely rallied around her. Older fans got to relive their youth, with these new Taylor's version releases, and a whole new generation of younger listeners discovered these classic songs for the very first time.
And from a ruthless economic standpoint, she completely devalued the original master recordings that Ithaca Holdings bought.
Think about it. Why would a movie studio, or a brand doing a commercial, or even a fan stream the old version owned by an investment firm when they could stream the exact same song, updated and owned by the artist herself?
Especially when the artist has mobilized her massive, highly loyal parasocial community to boycott the old versions.
It is absolute financial genius, which perfectly sets the stage for her current victory lap, and the sheer data here is staggering. I am geeking out over these numbers.
Let's talk about the Eras Tour. According to estimates from CNN cited in the analysis, this single tour is projected to generate a jaw-dropping $2.2 billion.
Billion, with a B. It is fundamentally redefining the economics of live entertainment. We aren't just talking about people buying T-shirts at a stadium. When she plays a city, it functions like a localized economic stimulus package.
Can you elaborate on that? How does one person impact a city's economy that much?
Because hundreds of thousands of people travel to see her. They book out every hotel room, causing rates to surge. They pack local restaurants. They use public transit at record levels. Local businesses run themed promotions.
The influx of cash into a local economy over a single weekend is so massive that it literally moves the needle on regional GDP.
And it is not just happening in the United States. The global influence is completely unprecedented.
The analysis mentions that actual world leaders, like Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada and President Gabriel Boric of Chile, were writing open letters publicly begging her to bring the tour to their countries just to get that economic boost.
Exactly. Her tour dates became matters of national economic interest.
So what does this all mean? The research points out that recently she became the first artist in history to occupy the entire Billboard Top 10 simultaneously, every single spot.
The cultural dominance is so absolute that the author of this analysis directly compares her impact to Beatlemania.
And that comparison isn't made lightly. The Beatles didn't just have radio hits, they defined an entire generation's emotional and cultural landscape.
When we synthesize everything Free Dyke's analysis presents, the conclusion is overwhelmingly clear. Taylor Swift's success is absolutely not an accident.
It's not just about having raw musical talent or a catchy melody. It's the blueprint of a prodigy combined with the resilience of a heavyweight fighter.
It is the result of a relentless, bleeding fingers work ethic that started at age 10. It's her willingness to be fiercely vulnerable and write songs that function as open, honest diaries.
And above all, it's her strategic genius. Her ability to constantly reinvent herself from a teenage country darling to a global pop superstar to the villain in the snake imagery, while somehow staying completely authentic to her core identity as a storyteller.
It really makes you think about your own life.
Obviously, most of you listening aren't dealing with billions of dollars or having your speeches interrupted on global television, but we all face critics. We all face moments where our reputation is unfairly attacked at work or in our social circles, or we feel like we've hit absolute rock bottom.
How can you take ownership of your own narrative? When someone hands you a snake emoji, so to speak, how do you turn that into your armor?
It's about not letting external forces write your story for you.
And looking at the massive global scale of what she has accomplished by taking her power back, this raises an important question.
I love where this is going.
If a single artist, armed with a fiercely loyal community, can completely bankrupt the value of their stolen original recordings simply by recreating them, what does that mean for the future of copyright and corporate ownership in art?
Could Taylor Swift's re-recording strategy be the ultimate blueprint that eventually dismantles the traditional record label system entirely?
Wow, that is something to seriously chew on. Taking down the very corporate system that built the industry from the inside out.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll leave you to mull that one over, and we'll catch you next time.